Alright, I think I'm live. Firstly, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everyone who tunes in. I just thought it would be fun today to watch the James Webb Space Telescope launch and pretend we were delivering the telescope to its launch destination. So I am sat here in the DC-6. We're going to load it up with the same weight as the telescope, which my research tells me is 14,300 pounds, and then we will make our way to its launch site, which I can grab for us here. If I'm not an idiot. This one? Well enough. Okay, so we're taking off from Sierra Yankee Charlie Juliet. We will fly over the actual launch site here in French Guyana, and then we will land to deliver it to Sierra Oscar Charlie Alpha. So it's going to be kind of quick and dirty getting started here because the launch stream is already going. So I'm going to shut up, I'm going to turn my camera off, and I'm going to put the YouTube stream on while I get started cold and dark here, and then we will make our way.
From liftoff until the time that the Webb Observatory is separated from the upper stage of the Ariane 5 rocket, several minutes later the commands will be given to unfurl its solar array, followed by the confirmation from the telescope controllers in Baltimore that we are power positive, meaning that electrical current is flowing through that solar array. With us today inside the so-called fishbowl, seated with mission controllers on the floor of the control room, is Raphael Chevrier of Arianespace. Raphael, how's everything looking? What's being discussed down there?
Hi, Rob. Well, so far so good. We just received the last weather forecast. It's all green for the H0 that is forecast right now. What we checked was altitude winds, wind in the vicinity of the launch pad, and risk of lightning. So right now, it's a relief because the weather was a bit tough in the last couple of days. But right now, everybody is very focused on the next steps. The start of the synchronized sequence at 7 minutes before liftoff. Last operations that Luz described earlier before Webb and the Ariane 5 are going to lift off and soar into the sky.
Thanks, Raphael. We'll be back with you and Luz here shortly. We now have confirmation from Baltimore that James Webb is on internal power. Amidst all of this activity, we cannot forget that it is Christmas Day. 53 years ago, the astronauts of Apollo 8 completed their 10th and final orbit of the moon after reading from the book of Genesis on Christmas Eve to billions of people watching with rapt attention back on our planet. The astronauts then headed for home following their spacecraft's trans-Earth injection burn. Today, more than a half-century later, we're just minutes away from another Genesis, the genesis of new era of discovery. The launch of the James Webb Space Telescope is at hand. We're just 38 seconds away from entering the critical synchronized sequence. You're going to be hearing all the critical calls from the DDO, the Range Operations Manager, who is Jean-Luc Voyer, here in the in the Mission Control Center. There he is. He will be calling the start of synchronized sequence, all of the critical countdown milestones, and we will be listening very intently for his calls. Let's stand by.
À tous de DDO. Attention pour la séquence finale lanceur.
6, 9, 12.
Top. À 0 moins 7 minutes.
And with that, we've entered the period of synchronized sequence. You heard Luz Fabregat just a moment or two ago explain some of the critical activities. The first one coming up just a few seconds from now, which will be the topping off of the main stage tanks. The first or core stage was loaded earlier this morning with 175 tons of propellant, 150 tons of liquid oxygen, and 25 tons of liquid hydrogen. The upper stage loaded with 15 tons of propellant that will be the workhorse for a 16-minute burn to lift James Webb to its final orbit. At separation, some 27 minutes and 7 seconds after launch, James Webb will be at an altitude of about 864 statute miles. To put that into perspective, some 520 miles higher than the Hubble Space Telescope and more than 600 miles higher than the International Space Station. Webb at that point will be traveling about 21,000 miles an hour as it heads out to a highly elliptical, halo-like racetrack orbit some 1 million miles from Earth to begin its scientific observations.
In a little more than 1 minute from now, we will see the 4 tanks pressurized at their flight level for the last tests before the ignition of the Vulcan engine. And in parallel, the electric system are also set in flight configuration, the onboard computer. The electrical power, as for the telescope, it will switch from ground to internal power 1 minute before the launch, 1 minute and 5 seconds before the launch. And we are going to see -6 seconds. At -6 seconds, we will see the disconnection of the upper stage, these big cryotechnic arms you can see on this picture. Then, 3 seconds before the H0, the inertial platform that will give all the information about where it is to the launcher will be released. And at H0, the 7-second sequence to ignite the Vulcan engine of the main stage will start. That will take 7 seconds, a little less than 7 seconds, where the engine will start up to its flight regime. Once the computer has checked that the Vulcan engine is running normally, and you will see at that point a flame going stable at the outlet of the nozzle, and at that point, the onboard computer will ignite the 2 boosters that will enable to move the 770 tons of Ariane and Webb.
Coming up on the T-minus 4 minute mark right now, just a couple of milestones real quick. At the 1 minute 5 second mark into the flight, Ariane 5 will go through the period of maximum dynamic pressure, max Q as it's known. That will be the period of maximum aerodynamic forces on the rocket itself. The solid rocket boosters, which will provide about 90% of the initial thrust off the launch pad, will shut down and separate at the 2 minute 21 second mark into the flight, followed a minute and 5 seconds after that by fairing jettison. That will expose the James Webb Space Telescope to the environment of flight for the first time. The main stage separation, or the first stage separation, comes at the 8 minute 47 second mark into the flight, and that will be about a 16-minute burn of that upper stage engine. It will cut off at about 24 minutes 51 seconds into the flight, and then we'll go into a coast phase of about 2.5 minutes to allow any oscillations to dampen out, provide the most pristine environment for the James Webb Telescope before observatory separation. We're coming up on the 2 minute 50 second mark into the flight. Again, you're going to be hearing critical calls down the stretch here from the DDO, or the Range Operations Manager, Jean-Luc Voyer.
12.
The weather is go. We have a green board, no issues being worked. NASA officials, including Greg Robinson on the right, carefully watching the telemetry, looking intently at the final couple of minutes of the countdown. Lives have been spent in the preparation of the James Webb Space Telescope that is about to fly.
And Beatrice Romero on his side, on the left of the screen, from Arianespace.
And that is the DDO, the Range Operations Manager, Jean-Luc Voyer, as we have hit the 2 minute mark in the countdown.
None of this should matter. I genuinely don't know what's wrong.
The flight will be in 2 phases. You will see the first part of the flight during the solid rocket boosters phase. That will be the atmospheric part of the flight, and the trajectory will be driven by a very to reduce the aerodynamic loads, and we will have a very different exo-atmospheric flight after that.
And you were watching a number of people, VIPs and invited guests, moving out to the observation platform that is right next to the Jupiter Control Center as we stand by for the 1-minute call from Jean-Luc Voyer.
À tous les vidéos, attention pour moins 1 minute. Top, à 0 moins 1 minute.
Thumbs up from Jean-Luc Voyer. All systems are go. We're inside a minute now, T-minus 50 seconds and counting. As you heard earlier, the Vulcan 2 engine will ignite, turbo pumps will come up to flight speed for 7 seconds, and the command will be issued to ignite the solid rocket boosters. The James Webb Space Telescope will be on its way.
6, 9, 12.
T-minus 30 seconds and counting.
Nope, that still didn't sound good.
Standing by for terminal count.
À tous de DDO, attention pour les décomptes finales.
This doesn't make any
10,
sense.
9,
Let's
8,
just...
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, unité, top.
And we have engine start. And
Allumage
liftoff.
EAP, décollage.
Decollage, liftoff from a tropical rainforest to the edge of time
There goes
itself.
the telescope.
James Webb begins a voyage back to the birth of the universe. Punching a hole through the clouds, 20 seconds into the flight. Good pitch program reported.
Trajectoire est nominale.
Okay, now I genuinely don't
Vehicle
understand.
performance
I
is
control
nominal.
E that start. But like, or I pressed this button and it didn't work.
The Ariane 5 rocket continues to fly uphill in nominal fashion.
What the shit?
The rumble of the powerful Ariane 5 now
nominal.
being felt here in the control center. 3D animation.
We can hear the noise and feel the vibrations here. You're right, Rob. Yeah, impressive.
13 kilometers in altitude, 7 kilometers downrange, traveling about 0.6 kilometers per second.
Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
The trajectory reported to be nominal by Jean-Luc Voyer, the range operations manager. You can see at the bottom of your screen, the yellow line is the trajectory plot,
There we go.
perfectly overlaid
Finally
over
caught.
the green line, which was the
Hey,
pre-launch
morning, man.
trajectory.
Merry Christmas.
1 minute, 41 seconds into the flight, about 40 seconds away from
Pilotage est calme.
shutdown of the solid rocket boosters. Coming up on the 2-minute mark into the flight.
When it detects the threshold on acceleration, not the deceleration, but less acceleration.
Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
Everything is okay. Everything is normal.
2 minutes, 15 seconds into the flight.
When the computer detects this threshold, it will separate.
Séparation des EAP.
Done.
We have confirmation of solid rocket booster separation from Jean-Luc Voyer. This coming at an altitude of 44 miles. The Ariane 5 and James Webb traveling almost 5,000 miles an hour. We have about 1 minute, 5 seconds to go before fairing jettison. That'll be the next critical milestone.
The fairing is there to avoid the satellite being exposed to high temperatures and also high airflows. And as soon as the launcher leaves the atmosphere, as is now the case, the satellite does not need anymore to be protected, and Webb does not need anymore to be
Paramètres à bord
protected.
sont normaux.
So each kilogram being very important for the performance of the launch, we are going to eject this no more useful
Not too
fairing.
bad. Didn't do well.
And let's go down to the floor in the
Might
Jupiter
cut it
Control
together,
Center to Raphael Chevrier of Arianespace. Raphael, so
picture
far so
and video
good.
montage as
Hi,
a
Rob. So
Christmas
far,
gift
so
for
good.
some folks
Everything
I know.
is nominal, as we say when attitude and trajectory of the Ariane 5 is going perfectly well. As you can see also on the yellow line
Langage de la coiffe.
on the screen, we had the confirmation of the separation of the two solid boosters and now of the flaring, meaning that we have crossed the limits of the atmosphere. So everything is going
Tous les paramètres à
super
bord sont
good.
normaux.
And the DDO just said that all parameters are going perfectly smoothly. So let's continue the mission.
And Raphael, this is a view from the upper stage camera called the Vicky Cam, looking back at the James Webb Space Telescope. This is on about a 20-second delay or so because of the way the imagery is processed here in the control room. There's your telescope ready to unfurl its wings, basically, and begin its journey to it. The Lagrange point, the L2 point, about 1 million miles away from Earth.
La trajectoire est nominale.
Trajectory is nominal. The report from Jean-Luc Boyer. The liftoff time confirmed here in the Mission Control Center at 12:20 Greenwich Mean Time, 9:20 a.m. Peru time, 7:20 a.m. Eastern time.
Near the end or the end of your Christmas day.
The Ariane 5 and James Webb, 181 kilometers in altitude, 450
La trajectoire est nominale.
kilometers downrange from the launch site here in Peru.
Smooth.
5 minutes, 12 seconds into the flight. We have about 3.5 minutes to go in main stage or first stage performance. And again, you can see at the bottom of your screen the yellow plot line overlaid over the green line, meaning we are right on course, right down the pike, and a perfect trajectory so far for the Ariane 5
Tous les
rocket.
paramètres à bord sont normaux.
Christmas Day today. 5:26 a.m. Christmas Day.
By the Guyana tracking station, which is close to here where we are in Kourou. It will track the launcher up to the ignition of its upper stage,
Pilotage câble, la propulsion est nominale.
and then we'll have the Natal station in Brazil,
Standoff acting.
Ascension in the, as you can see on the map, in the middle of the ocean, and the two last stations in Africa, Libreville and Malindi, one on the east coast, the other one on the west coast. And the one on the west coast, Malindi, you can see that the satellite will be, the telescope will be separated more or less over this Malindi station. And this Malindi station will also acquire the telemetry data from the telescope. You can see both are green, Galileo and Natal on this animation. It means they are expected to receive the data, and it was confirmed right now by the launch operations manager.
Acquisition de télémesures par la station de Natal au Brésil.
Just confirming now that telemetry is being processed through the Brazilian tracking station. The telescope is also processing telemetry through the tracking and data relay satellite
pilotage
system.
est calme.
As it moves further and further out into deep space, all of the telescope's telemetry and its imagery ultimately will be processed through the Deep Space Network in Goldstone, California. We've passed the 7-minute mark into the flight. A perfect ride so far on the Ariane 5. We have about 1.5 minutes to go in the first stage performance. Once the main stage engine is commanded to cut off, it will be jettisoned, and just a few seconds after that, the upper stage engine will ignite, and it will be the workhorse for a 16-minute burn that will put James Webb into its preliminary orbit.
We're going to need every inch of this runway.
About 11 minutes from now, telescope controllers at the Space Telescope Science Institute will be sending commands to prepare James Webb for the initial series of commissioning activities that will lead to the deployment of its solar array and the initiation of generation of electrical power for the telescope. About 30 seconds away from main engine cutoff.
La trajectoire est normale.
Nominal trajectory continues to be the watchword for the day from the Range Operations Manager, Jean-Luc Boyer, as we stand by for main engine shutdown and separation.
Boost pumps. Boost pumps on low.
Should be good for a dry takeoff
Fuel selector
today.
crossfeed. Maintain
Extinction de l'EPC.
autopilot and carbide. Off and cold.
Opération EPC.
Hydraulic system.
And we have main stage shutdown and separation confirmed here in the Mission Control Center, and the ignition of that upper
Allumage
stage.
ESC.
Flaps to
And Raphael Chevrier down in the fishbowl. So far, so good.
Yes, Rob, we have the confirmation of the separation of the main stage and the ignition of the
trajectoire
upper
est nominale.
stage. The trajectory is perfectly nominal. This is a very important moment for us because it's always a challenge to switch on a cryogenic engine in space condition, and we are now at 220 kilometers of altitude. Speed is a bit more than 7 kilometers per second. As we enter now the second stage of the second phase of the flight, the upper stage is going to power for
Pilotage est calme.
about 16 minutes to place Webb on its transfer orbit, and right now everything is again nominal as the DDO just said.
And a short time from now, the so-called Sawtooth Maneuver will get underway. Again, like rocking a baby in a cradle, this will be a maneuver to keep Webb's
La propulsion
optics
est
protected
nominale.
from overheating, Luce.
Exactly, Rob, like a baby in a cradle. You can see here Webb attached on top of Ariane 5 upper stage with a very specific configuration. Of course, it will be different during its lifetime, but for the time being, its sun shield is folded and not yet
Tous les paramètres
fully
à bord sont
protecting the
normaux.
observatory. A number of
La propulsion est
exhaustive
nominale.
studies have been performed by the mission teams in Europe, in the US, on the thermal conditioning inside the telescope and the way the rays of the sun would propagate and interact with sensitive equipment inside the telescope. Maintain this thermal conditioning is really key before separating this telescope. And in particular, we know that one face of the telescope cannot face the sun. That's why and to produce these right thermal conditions inside the Webb, a specific roll law has been designed, what we call the Sawtooth approach. And if you are watching carefully to these images, you can see
propulsion
this animation.
est
You
nominale.
can see that the upper stage is going 30 degrees on one
Alright,
side,
we're ready to
then
go.
30 degrees on the other side, going back and forth this way to maintain this perfect thermal conditioning for the telescope.
It's worthwhile noting that after
Les
Webb
paramètres à bord sont
separates
normaux.
from the upper stage of the Ariane 5 rocket, which continues to perform in excellent fashion, coming up on the 12-minute mark into the flight, the telescope controllers will be taking the baton, if you will, from the mission controllers here in Kourou. The first steps will be the opening of fuel valves, a pair of fuel valves, to start flowing fuel to Webb's onboard thrusters. They then will power on the valve drive electronics. Those are powered on in preparation to control and fire those thrusters when required. Webb's
Caribou
solar array
ATC,
is scheduled to
we've
be
got a
deployed at
satellite that's
approximately
ready to
the
deliver.
33-minute
Tous les
mark
paramètres à
into the
bord
flight.
sont normaux.
Once it is locked in place, we'll get the call that electricity is flowing through the array. That call will come from the Mission Operations Manager, Starr, who's at the Space Telescope Science Institute at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. Seated right behind him in that control room is Alicia Starr, a pair of stars helping to guide James Webb on its discovery of the stars. Alicia Starr is the lead engineer for launch and ascent events. Once the solar array is deployed and declared power positive, then 3 out of the 4 hold downs for the aft deployed radiator will be released to prevent binding due to the cool down of the telescope's composite structure. The contamination control heaters will be enabled to protect instrument optics on Webb from any water ice condensation as they cool down. The actuator drive unit will be powered on. This particular mechanism helps with heater
La
control
propulsion est
of
nominale.
the fine
Tous les paramètres à
steering
bord sont
mirror
normaux.
preventing water ice condensation, later to be used to position each of the mirror's segments. All 6 reaction wheels and the wheel drive electronics will be powered on for Webb, and that will be the precursor to the attitude control system using those reaction wheels to maintain the proper orientation with the sun, as opposed to using onboard thrusters. Of course, fuel in those thrusters, very valuable. It's a limited commodity for the lifetime of James Webb's observations of the universe. We're 13 minutes, 55 seconds into the flight. Jean-Luc Boyer, the range operations manager, continues to report a nominal performance for James Webb. And again, Luce Fabregat from the European Space Agency, how is this trajectory being carefully and methodically adjusted to provide the correct parameters in the final stages of ascent?
Yes, Rob, as you can see on this plot, the altitude is slightly going down. It's perfectly normal. The launch vehicle is really on the line where it should be. This decrease of its altitude, slight decrease of its altitude, will allow the launcher to benefit at the upper stage to benefit of the gravity effect and to increase its velocity until it reaches the thermal threshold. It's about to reach it, or even already reached it now, and it will go up. And now it will go up and up to the separation of the Webb telescope. It will separate the Webb telescope on a highly elliptic orbit, but still around the Earth. The telescope will be released, inserted on an orbit around the Earth with an apogee, a very high apogee above 1 million kilometers.
Trajectory nominal as reported by Jean-Luc Boyer. You see him in that view, 185 kilometers in altitude, some 4,500 kilometers downrange from the launch site here in Kourou, moving at more than 8 kilometers per second, right on the plot, right on the trajectory, everything looking great. We are about 9 minutes away from the completion of upper stage ignition. It's shutdown, and then about a 2.5-minute coast phase before Webb will separate. Observatory separation will be called out. You'll be hearing those calls and the initial calls from Carl Starr, the mission operations manager at the Space Telescope Science Institute at Johns Hopkins, through solar array deploy and the declaration of a power-positive spacecraft. James Webb, of course, will be traveling well beyond the moon to a distance of about 1 million miles away from Earth, settling into a highly elliptical, halo-like orbit to begin its astronomical observations. And again, as we mentioned earlier, at the time of observatory separation, Webb will be at an altitude of approximately 864 miles, statute miles, traveling some 21,000 miles an hour. We're about 8 minutes away from upper stage shutdown. The stage has performed as planned. No issues reported. The launch occurring at 12:20 Greenwich Mean Time, 9:20 Kourou time, 7:20 a.m. Eastern Time on this Christmas Day.
There is the velocity you just mentioned is very important, Rob. The velocity you just mentioned at separation of the telescope is very important. It will be slightly below, okay, I give it in kilometers per second, but it will be slightly below 10 kilometers per second, because it's important that the satellite, the telescope, is not inserted on an escape orbit. It will be placed on a terrestrial orbit so that there will be time for the layout, for the early phase operations and the commissioning of the telescope. And that will be, in fact, the upper stage that will leave this orbit and goes toward an escape liberation orbit.
And of course, even though we're still in powered flight, the trajectory, the acceleration, the speed at which James Webb is going towards its preliminary orbit, all modeled in advance and carefully choreographed to maintain as quiescent an atmosphere and environment around the telescope for its ultimate separation from the upper stage of the Ariane 5 rocket,
Why, yes,
which is about 6.5 minutes from now.
That's a thesaurus word. That boy looked that word up.
18.5 minutes into the flight. It's very quiet now here in the control center here in Kourou. NASA officials, European Space Agency officials, Ariane Space officials, all watching telemetry very carefully. And as the upper stage continues to burn nominally and sheds fuel, the acceleration uphill for the James Webb Space Telescope continues to increase as we approach the 20-minute mark into the flight. Again, upper stage cutoff is scheduled at the 24-minute 51-second mark into the flight, about 5.5 minutes from now.
After the cutoff of this main engine, as you said, Rob, we will have a short ballistic phase, a short coasting phase that will, when the upper stage will rely fully on its what we call the attitude and roll control system, and it will adjust its attitude so that during this so small ballistic phase, all the requirements from the telescope are fully met, and that at the separation, when there will be the separation, the conditions will be very smooth and as requested for the telescope.
Le pilotage est calme, la propulsion est nominale.
Today's countdown was as flawless as you can imagine. The weather was perfect all the way through the early morning hours, through the fueling process of the vehicle. The weather's been a bit dicey here in Kourou over the past few days, but everything fell together on this Christmas day to send a new present to the world's astronomer. 20 minutes, 40 seconds into the flight.
Trajectoire normale, tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
All parameters nominal as reported by Jean-Luc Boyer, the range operations manager. Four minutes of powered flight remaining.
This is live, so I don't know, 6 months until it gets to Lagrange 2, I guess. Our flight plan is about an hour and a half.
The telemetry of the launch vehicle is acquired for the time being by the Libreville tracking station on the western coast of
Trajectoire est
Africa.
normale.
Flight control is nominal. The trajectory is fully normal, fully as expected, as you can see on the plot with the yellow plot over the green one. That is the expected one.
22 minutes into the flight. Less than 3 minutes of powered flight
Pilotage
remaining.
Actually
est
streaming
calme.
for 6 months, of course.
Smooth
I
flight
don't know how
control.
long they expect to stream the launch event. It's up to NASA, I guess.
And again, as we've mentioned before,
Les paramètres
I
à
wish
bord
I'd
sont
started a
normaux.
little bit earlier.
everything nominal reported by the range operations manager. As we've mentioned before, this is a long ride uphill for the James Webb Space Telescope to put it at the proper position in the sky so that it can escape from the Earth, basically head beyond the moon towards its final orbit for its commissioning activities that will be the dominant feature of all of the operations from the Space Telescope Science Institute over the course of the next several weeks.
And the launch operations manager announced the acquisition by Malindi, by the Malindi station, as expected, for the end of the flight and the last part of the upper stage flight and the separation of the telescope.
James Webb is about 4 minutes away from separating from the upper stage.
For sure.
And again, at that point, it will be on its own. And again, those milestones that we discussed a bit earlier in the broadcast will begin to be followed carefully by the telescope controllers at the Mission Operations Center, the MOC as it's called, at the Space Telescope Science Institute in Baltimore.
I think I lost a follower on Twitch. I only have 5.
1 minute of powered flight remaining. The upper stage continues to function perfectly. It's been a smooth ride for the James Webb Space Telescope.
Trajectoire est nominale.
That upper stage was loaded pre-flight this morning with 15 tons of propellant for this long 16-minute burn. Now about 30 seconds away from upper stage cutoff. Standing by for upper stage shutdown, the cutoff of the upper stage engine.
Must be on Christmas break from school or whatever.
Extinction ESC.
Doing remote learning? Or how are they handling school where you are?
Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
The extinction of the shutdown, the cutoff of the engine was confirmed exactly as expected, with the exactly expected altitude and speed and velocity. So now we have entered the coasting phase, the ballistic phase that will last for a little more than 2 minutes.
And the telescope controllers in Baltimore confirming that all of the function parameters for the James Webb Space Telescope have been loaded on board the telescope. We are expecting Webb separation at the 27-minute 7-second mark here into the flight. Just over a minute from now, springs will gently push Webb away from the upper stage of the Ariane 5. As it moves further and further away from the upper stage, there'll be what we refer to as a collision avoidance maneuver.
Yes, Rob, exactly. The springs already will give some distancing, of course, between the two objects, between the telescope and the upper stage. And then the upper stage will leave the trajectory of the telescope and makes a special maneuver to pass the telescope and heads towards a liberation orbit and leaves the telescope on its orbit without any risk of collision and without any risk of pollution towards the telescope.
And we're about 17 seconds away from Webb separation.
Séparation Webb Space Telescope. Go Webb!
We do have confirmation of observatory separation. The James Webb Space Telescope, amidst applause here in the Mission Control Center, now taking its first steps in pursuit of cosmological discovery. It was a perfect ride to orbit.
Given the things that Hubble has shown us.
And all of the separation sequence events are running in good fashion according to the telescope controllers.
To see what this telescope is going to shed light on.
And there is the view from the upper stage camera on the Ariane 5 looking at the James Webb Space Telescope as it moves gently away from its launch vehicle.
Go Webb.
Yes, go Webb.
Something I hadn't really considered.
Ironically enough, as we marvel on this view from the upper stage camera, this will be humanity's last view of the James Webb Space Telescope as it moves to its workplace about 1 million miles away from Earth.
Yes, you're right, Rob. Impressive, fantastic pictures. Yeah.
Now we'll be hearing shortly from the Mission Operations Manager of the Space Telescope Science Institute, Carl Starr, who will be calling out the procedures that will lead to the deployment of Webb's solar array. And down in the fishbowl where there is jubilation, let's go to Raphael Chevrier of Ariane Space. And before we do that, Raphael, a bit earlier than planned, but there is the solar array having been deployed. James Webb now has its array out as we stand by for confirmation that it is power positive.
Hey, Rob. J'entends pas ce qu'il me dit. Pardon. Il m'a appelé ou pas? Il m'a appelé ou pas?
Non, il n'a pas.
And there it is. There's your critical call. James Webb not only has legs, but it has power as it begins its journey and the commissioning activities to follow. And with that, let's go down to the floor in the fishbowl and Raphael Chevrier of Ariane Space.
This is it. We have witnessed the confirmation that Ariane 5 has safely delivered Webb into space. The upper stage is now being placed on a safe escape orbit around the Sun, but honestly, I've got to tell you that these images are absolutely incredible, and well, it may be the end of the mission for Ariane Space, but it's only the beginning of the journey for Webb. It's now on its way to the Lagrange point. Congratulations to all the team involved in the flight. Really, there is no words to describe the immersion that is happening right now in the fishbowl. So all I can say is good luck, Webb, and bring us incredible data from the deep universe.
At that point, our sequence will continue.
Well, Raphael, congratulations on a perfect ride to orbit from the Ariane 5 out of Kourou here today. A view here in the Space Telescope Science Institute. Their work just beginning on a new era of scientific observations. Luce Fabregat, it was a smooth ride to orbit. Everything went by the book, almost like a simulation without any problems. And we thank you for all of your insight throughout the course of the day.
Thanks to you, Rob. And really a great achievement. I have many faces and names now coming up to my mind, and really can be proud of what was achieved on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean. Thanks a lot to you.
Tremendous jubilation here in the control center. You're looking at Jean-Luc Voyer, the range operations manager. Quite a Christmas present for the world's astronomers as the James Webb Space Telescope begins its life, heading towards deep space. With that, we're going to go back to the floor now to Katie Haswell. Katie, we did our thing. It's up to you now.
Oh my goodness, I just can't tell you. It's such utter jubilation here on the floor in the Jupiter Control Center. Everybody's been whooping with joy. The controllers here and the mission controllers jumping up, clapping, whooping with joy, people hugging.
Maybe that's a little
and
better.
I have to say,
Gotta work on
my throat was caught as I saw that the
equalization.
glimpse of sunshine on Webb solar panels as we watched it heading out into space on its journey to its working zone. It's going to take about 6 months before we start getting our deep space observations from Webb, because the teams have got a huge amount to do before we get to that. And our best wishes with all those teams in Baltimore. I want to get some reaction. Right now, everybody's talking and hugging each other because they're feeling so excited, and I totally understand that. Let's start, though, by going over to the NASA administrator, Bill Nelson.
now that they're separated and power positive, I doubt the stream will last too much longer. The live stream, I should say.
Administrator Bill Nelson, right now looking at these jubilant scenes here in the Mission Control Center in Kourou, the European spaceport in South America. There are the teams, the mission controllers.
Should take about a month for the James Webb Space Telescope to reach Lagrange 2. And then they say it's going to be about a month for it to be aligned and configured. And then it's going to be another few months for them to gather data and analyze. And yeah, they say we should have our first images from this beast in 6 months or so. It's pretty exciting. I was way off from the perspective of like timing this flight. Like, we've got a long ways to go before we land.
Filling the JW6 config.
That satellite is going to an area called Lagrange 2. So it is there are several Lagrange points in the solar system, and Lagrange 2, I should clarify, all of them are gravitationally equalized points. So you can basically put something in space at that point and it won't be affected by the pull of other bodies. So Lagrange 2 is just on the other side of just on the other side. It's 700,000 miles on the other side of the moon. So it stabilizes in its orbit between Earth, the moon, and the sun. And it basically follows us as we orbit the sun constantly. So within a year, you are able to see all points in our sky. It's really cool.
Okay, the range operations manager has been calling out the milestones throughout the flight today. And the ESA teams responsible for so much fabulous work, great teamwork here to get the Webb telescope into space, and Webb is now heading out on its journey, on its own, with the mission controllers, the telescope mission controllers in Baltimore, following those incredibly important first actions and first operations. Charlotte Bezko there, who's responsible for the ESA operations here at the spaceport. We're hanging in there, waiting and hoping to hear from the NASA administrator, Bill Nelson, who I have absolutely no doubt will be as jubilant as everybody here at the Guyana Space Center. Charlotte Bezko, who has been working for, I think, most of her professional life in human spaceflight, and now heading up the ESA operations here at the European spaceport.
This image kind of illustrates the Lagrange points. So mass 1 is Earth, mass 2 is the moon, and L2 is the Lagrange point that the telescope is being launched to. So it's going to sit there permanently as we orbit the sun.
Katie, thank you very much. This is a great day, not only for America, for our European and Canadian partners, but it's a great day for planet Earth. Thanks to the team. You all have just been incredible. And over 3 decades, you
That's
produced
exciting. I
this
live too far north to
telescope
ever have any hope of seeing
that
any
is now
launches,
going
but
to take us back
that
in
would be
time.
just
It's
an
a time
amazing sight to
machine.
see. I would always,
It's going to take
I've always
us
wished
back
I could see
to
things
the
like that.
very beginnings of the universe. We are going to discover incredible things that we never imagined. And isn't that typical of this team, where the impossible comes possible? I can't thank you enough on behalf of
This
a
telescope
grateful
is said
United
to
States
be
government.
powerful enough
I
to
can't
see
thank
far
our
enough to
partners
see
in Europe
basically
and
the beginnings
Canada
of the universe,
enough.
which is nuts.
The French launch team, the Ariane Space, the flawless perfection of the vehicle. And now we have to realize there are still innumerable things that have to work, and they have to work perfectly. 344 of them. But we know that in great reward, there is great risk. And that's what this business is all about. And that's why we dare to explore. The James Webb Space Telescope is very much a part of that exploration. It's significant that we had the delays, and it kept us all the way to today, Christmas Day, when others long ago peered up into the sky and saw stars. But it's also another millennia before that a shepherd grazing his sheep would look up at the night sky. He became a poet, and he penned the words, "The heavens declare the glory of God. The firmament shows his handiwork." That shepherd, that poet.
Oh man,
became
why?
king.
Why would you do that? Like,
And
the world is
those
just
immortal
flooded
words
with
in
flat
Psalm
earth
19
mouth breathers yammering on
encapsulate
about the dome and the firmament and all of this
expressions
stuff,
that we
and
have
NASA
today.
on their official broadcast
The
makes a point
handiwork
to
of God
mention the
as
word
we peer
firmament.
back in
Oh
time.
my God. There
Over
goes all of
13
the
billion
legitimacy
years
of this
ago,
launch in
capture
the
light
eyes of the
from
entire
very
flat Earth community.
beginning of the creation.
Yeah.
My congratulations to the team. My congratulations to NASA, to our partners. Go James Webb Space Telescope. God bless you, and God bless planet Earth. Back to you, Katie.
Bill Nelson, thank you very, very much for those incredibly moving words. Indeed, we're heading out to look at the first light of the universe, and Bill Nelson there, we have Stefan Israel with us from Ariane Space. Bill Nelson there being so complimentary about the partnerships, the teamwork, and thanks as well to you guys for this fantastic launch. What a day, Stefan.
Indeed, what a Christmas gift today from the Guyana Space Center. We really want to thank NASA for its trust. The administrator, Bill Nelson, we have with us Thomas Zoburon and all his team, and
Oh, copy
our
that.
first
Yes,
results are
thank
going
you.
to NASA.
Oh,
It is
we
a journey
have
of 20 years we have made together. We have
before.
worked as hell, I would say, to make this
Oh
happen.
man,
And
you got to pay
I
close
want to thank
attention to the
as well,
subtitles.
Isa,
It said
who
something
is
about a
formerly
tomato
a
wizard at some
contractor
point
for
there.
this, launch. We have Joseph Ashbarer with us, we have Daniel Neuschwander. We have worked hand by hand to make it happen. I want to thank CNES, Ariane 5 Design Authority, and our daily partner here in the Guyana Space Center. Philippe Baptiste is with us, Marianne Claire is with us. Thank you very much to CNES. For sure, I want to pay my tribute to Ariane Group, which is the prime contractor of Ariane 5, main shareholder of Ariane Space, and which has delivered the launcher up to liftoff. And doing so, I pay also my tribute to Ariane Space team. The Ariane Space team has worked all this year to make this 14th launch of the year and this very special mission. Your dedication, your professionalism has made the success of tonight. Tonight is a great step for the space journey. It is also a great step for the friendship between the United States of America, Europe and France. So thank you very much to all of us. And now I think we can take a little bit of a rest, but we are going
Strange
now
that
to
he
leave with
distinguished France as distinct from Europe.
Thank you very much, Stefan. And the Director
I mean, he's
General
obviously
of
a
the European
French
Space
national in
Agency
some
is
way,
Joseph
but
Aschbacher. Joseph.
it's kind of the same thing from my point of view.
So Merry Christmas to everyone.
Oh, jeez. This guy could be Jeff Goldblum's stunt double. Look at him. I expected him to start telling me about dinosaurs.
We are really enabling new science, new excitement.
That guy is Jeff Goldblum. I will not be convinced otherwise.
I'm really grateful for this success. We have delivered a mission into space. It's power positive, everything is nominal, and I'm very grateful to Arianespace and all our partners for all this work. Stefan Israel has already thanked all our partners, but let me also just very briefly recall that this was really a team effort. It was a team effort.
I didn't realize Jeff Goldblum was into space and dinosaurs. Like, that's diverse.
With CNES, with Ariane Group, with all our partners which we have to make this possible. And I really would like to spend a minute to thank all the people involved in this. Today is Christmas. Some of them are here. They've been spent weeks here in French Guyana or at the sites where they've been working. It's a special moment. I know they've made sacrifices, but it's a special moment. And really thank you from my heart. But also thank you, NASA. Bill Nelson was speaking before. Thomas Turbuchen is here with his team. Fantastic cooperation, and this cooperation between NASA and European team is really exemplary. And a big, big thank you, Thomas and your people, for what you have done together with us, that you have entrusted this precious spacecraft to us, which we could deliver. And I'm so happy today, I can tell you, this is a very special moment. It's very nerve-wracking. I couldn't do launches every single day. This would not be good for my life expectancy, but I can tell you this was very exciting, very nerve-wracking, but really, really very successful, and thank you from my side. And congratulations, NASA, congratulations, science community. Big science is to come, and really, really happy. Thank you from my side.
Big science is to come.
So the president of the CNES, which is the French space agency, is Philippe Baptiste, and he joins us now. Philippe.
Thank you very much. Well, as everybody here in the room, I'm very, very happy to see that everything was fine, everything is nominal. It's great news for NASA, for ESA, for all of us. I just want to thank all the people who have been working over the last 20 years on this incredible instrument, on this telescope, but also people who have been working on the launch. I'm thinking especially on the 500 people who have been working yesterday during Christmas Eve to prepare the launch, to prepare the successful launch, and I really want to thank them very much. People from CNES, from ESA, from NASA, from Arianespace, and from all the partners who were around. I also want to give a special thanks
Satellite
to
launches don't even make
French
headlines
Armed
these
Force
days.
of Guyana, who made this launch possible. They were monitoring everything.
SpaceX launches
and without them, nothing would be
thousands
possible
of them
here
a
on
year.
this side. So thank you very much for all of them, and thanks also to all people from Guyana who are supporting this incredible European space force that we have here today. Thank you very much.
So we now have a pre-recorded message from Lisa Campbell, who is the president of the Canadian Space Agency.
I am so proud to witness the highly anticipated launch of this extraordinary mission. Je suis très heureuse et fière de m'adresser à vous aujourd'hui. It's a remarkable feat of international collaboration to think of all the scientific and engineering coordination that made today's events possible. In fact, Webb is the result of close to 25 years of planning and development with our international partners. Notre participation au télescope Webb est l'aboutissement de plus de 25 ans de planification et de développement avec nos partenaires internationaux. We're playing a big role on the world stage. Canadian excellence has helped make this flagship telescope a reality. Our participation in Webb is extremely significant. It's the largest space science project in the 60-year history of our
not to
space
discredit
program.
it at all. Like I said, I would give quite a lot to be in the vicinity of the launch. Once in a lifetime experience for a lot of people.
The successful launch of this groundbreaking telescope bolsters humanity's quest for knowledge of the cosmos and ignites interest in astronomy for a new generation. The Canadian Space Agency is proud to have contributed critical instruments to this large-scale partnership as part of a global effort to spur the next great scientific leap. We're thrilled to take part in a mission of such enormous scientific promise. Nous sommes ravis de
At
faire
least I
partie de
take a
cette
little
mission
bit of
extraordinaire.
solace in the fact that
Canadian
my
astronomers
stream
are
is
excited
laggy,
to use Webb's
but so's
data
NASA's.
and benefit from the tremendous science opportunities offered by this one-of-a-kind observatory. We congratulate the fantastic team of over 10,000 people who put all their skills, ingenuity, and effort into developing the telescope for more than 2 decades. Bon voyage, Webb. Canadians will follow your journey with great interest.
And now I'd like to hand you over to Thomas de Brucken, who is the head of science at NASA. Thomas.
Well, Katie, what an emotional day, what an emotional time. We're here, all of us who have been working together for so many weeks,
I can't even
months,
imagine
and years,
reaching
and
a
more
point in my
importantly,
life where I've
our teams
achieved
are
the
taking
title of
team images
head of
behind us
science for
who have
NASA.
put in front of their lives as the highest priority for so many of them to actually get this done and get it done here, working
What are
even
you in
during the
charge
holiday
of?
times.
Science?
I just couldn't be more grateful
Just
to
all
the
of the
many,
science,
whether
the
it's
science that
Arianespace,
NASA does? Yeah, I'm in
the
charge
European
of that.
Space Agency, all the amazing people around French Guyana, the forces that are here, all the good people that have been such great hosts to our teams, all of them I want to thank. You know, whenever we look at launches, they're both an ending and a beginning. They're an ending of an engineering project on the ground. And with many amazing
All right,
hours
to
and
preface,
challenges that are there.
this man has done more in
But
his
they're a
life than I
beginning.
ever could
They're a
hope to
beginning
accomplish.
Of one
But
of
his
the most
voice,
amazing,
like you can
missions that humanity
you
has
can
conceived,
hear the
and I'm
number
so
of pocket
excited,
protectors he's
to
owned, right?
look forward to the next setup of this telescope and all the science to come. Thanks to everybody. This is what we can do when we come together, Katie, as one, humans. It's just absolutely incredible.
It's wonderful. And Dr. Z, thank you very much. Massive congratulations to you all, to everybody who's involved in today. Huge congratulations from everybody here at the Guyana Space Center, and also our very best wishes to all the teams in Baltimore who are now monitoring those early operations of the telescope as it starts to unfold. I'm going to hand you back now to Goddard, but before I do, I just want to say from all of us here at the Guyana Space Center, Merry Christmas. Over to you, Michelle.
Thank you, Katie. I can tell you that here it feels like the dawn of a new age. Historians of the future will divide our understanding of the cosmos into eras before Webb and after
This
Webb.
woman's hair
Webb
has
is
been
this
getting
milestone that
crazier
marks
and
bold
crazier
efforts
as
to
the
look
years
backwards
go
in
on.
time to the
I
mysterious
remember
origins
seeing her
of
in like documentaries a long time ago.
Of course,
It was much
we
more
move at
tame.
human time
Now
scale,
she's
so
like,
here's what's coming up.
"Rawr,
In the
I'm a
next few
lion."
weeks, engineers will unfold Webb's critical sun shield to begin chilling the telescope to unimaginably cold temperatures. They'll extend the DTA, the Deployable Tower Assembly, the structure that supports the Great Golden Mirror. And then finally, they'll unfold that mirror and begin the process of fine-tuning the system for work. Through it all, we intend to bring you live coverage of all of the important events that are happening, along with expert commentary and extraordinary images from the Mission Operations Center and our own broadcast headquarters here at Webb's home, the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. Stay with us over the next few weeks because the adventure is just getting started. Speaking for everyone on the team, it's been a great pleasure to be with you here today. I'm Michelle Fowler, and you've been watching special live coverage of the historic launch of the James Webb Space Telescope. Thank you for joining us.
assume that's it. It's the end of the launch. We are much further out than I expected to be at this point. This is brutal. It's only supposed to be like an hour and a half, but we're like not even halfway there. The telescope's late. No. I'm not a sports guy at all. I live in Edmonton. We have an NHL team. But their impact on my day-to-day life mostly just fills me with resentment. I'm a incredibly pragmatic and utilitarian type person. So I hit a whole bunch of obstacles when it comes to enjoying professional sports as a viewer. Like, I get hung up and spend the whole time wondering why these people I'm watching are making millions of dollars, whereas the nurses and doctors in my province can't, like, pay their rent. That stuff bothers me too much to really like sports. Yeah, NHL's hockey, professional hockey. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are solutions, but they aren't employed in any professional sports I'm really familiar with. Like, it's all just a big marketing play, right? They justify baseball players being paid $100 million contracts to hit some ball with a stick, because that's how much money the industry makes, right? Like they can afford it, frankly. But I don't know, that still bothers me. I hate that watching some game be played generates enough money to like solve world hunger, and no one seems to give a shit. Like maybe we just put baseball and football on the sidelines for 5 years and make sure everyone's got a home to live in, right? Like let's just prioritize some shit. I know that opinion has bias. Like, it would be easy for me to say, let's turn off sports ball for 5 years, because I don't give a shit about sports ball. You know, if they said, let's turn off the internet and put all of our infrastructure into housing and food development and stuff instead for 5 years, I'd probably have a bigger concern. But I'm not the guy that needs to draw that line. But someone needs to draw that line. Someone needs to put their foot down and say, look, we are grossly wasting resources and currency on things that really aren't important, like long term. Like if I had a semester's worth of homework that needed to be finished, and I was like, nope, I'm gonna go play games, then I would be scolded, right? I would have people telling me that I am not utilizing my time properly, or that I'm not living my life correctly. But that's how society functions, right? Like we've got trillions of dollars worth of homework on our plate, and we're just like, nah, I'm gonna put my fingers in my ears, and I don't even know what people do these days. Play Fortnite for 17 hours a day. I genuinely feel that all of our societal problems seem to be impassable obstacles, because we expend the majority of our energy like mitigating the symptoms of these problems and distracting ourselves from them, right? Like if we just addressed the problems when we recognize them to be problems, then we wouldn't find ourselves 70 years down the road of climate change with no effort to mitigate it in place whatsoever, right? Like, we just need to take smaller, more regular, incremental steps towards bettering society, rather than just waiting until the walls are collapsing around us to make any change whatsoever. I've been saying people should, like, carry their groceries home and walk the fuck to work for 10 years. I don't know, the biggest counter argument anyone has to drastic change to better things is like, that's not practical, or it needs to be more gradual in order for it to be even feasible. And that's a fair argument, but you have to start early for that to be a possibility. We have pissed away decades of our gradual opportunities, right? We're now at the point where gradual isn't a friggin' option anymore, so stop whining and sell your fucking car. if you'd voted for smarter people 50 years ago, maybe you'd still get to drive to work. Shut up. Sorry, I'm gonna rant forever now. You got me started. The box, or the lid's off Pandora's box now. No, honestly, I enjoy ranting. It's like a pressure valve or a pressure release for me, because I sit in my basement and I watch society eroding itself around me, and all I feel is just anger. So sometimes it's nice to get it out, but I know that I can just like go for hours. So some people it's a little much. I got a lot of things to say about the way things are run these days, let me put it that way. I got a lot of problems. Oh, it's cold here today. Couple hours ago it was minus 25. Let's see what it is now. It is minus 27 degrees Celsius today. With an expected high of minus 25, so it's not going to get much better than this. Holy, I'm just seeing here now that on Monday it's supposed to be minus 36. Monday will be a cold one. Minus 36 is pretty rough. It won't? In what way is minus 36 not incredibly, incredibly cold? That's a Canadian winter right there. When the temperature gets to the point where it doesn't matter if it's Fahrenheit or Celsius, that's when you know it's cold. That like minus, what is it? I think it's minus 40 is when that switch equalizes, or when like it's not much different. Yep. I mean, the coldest weather I ever have personally experienced was minus 70. Minus 70 Celsius, including wind. So that's like a whole 100 degrees colder than where you are right now. You could boil water in the distance between our temperatures. That's a good question. Like the hottest I've ever experienced was probably somewhere around 37 to 40, I think. But that's like exceptionally rare where I live in Canada. There's some places in Canada where you'll regularly get the mid-30s, low 40s, but well, low 40s maybe not, but you'll regularly get mid-30s elsewhere in Canada, but not so much here. We might get a handful of days over the summer where it's, you know, positive 30. I read articles of some places on Earth that hit like 58 degrees Celsius or something in the last year or two. That's insane. Called blind melon. I think it's kind of like honeydew. There's another that I get called Velociraptor or something. It's like a bitter raspberry. It's pretty good. you're too young for that shit. Wait until you're older. I didn't start until I was like 25, so be smart about it. Do whatever the fuck you want, but be smart about it. I was super opposed to it when I was growing up, like, just a straight edge elitist pile of shit, frankly. But I don't know, you hit adulthood and you realize life isn't all it's cracked up to be, and you're like, yeah, I might as well enjoy it while I can. Your point of view can change. Get to the point where your life is distilled down to going to work 9 to 5 and hating 5/7 of every freaking week, and you're like, ah, to hell with it. Maybe that's just me. I'm as jaded as they come. Did you get any particularly exciting gifts for Christmas? Anything that stands out? Never heard of futsal before. It's like mini soccer, mini football. Interesting. A massage gun. Like one of those things that you pull the trigger and like rub on your back. Is its alt fire a happy ending? That's cool. Played soccer when I was younger. I kind of played a shotgun selection of a bunch of different sports when I was younger. Soccer, baseball, basketball. I never played football or hockey. I was in bowling. Bowling was my favorite by far. So much fun. Would that you could call it a sport, but I honestly don't know how big bowling is, like as a whole. I only played when I was young. I haven't played in 15 years or something, but I enjoyed it anyway. Never been bowling in the city that I live in now. I was in that league in my hometown when I was growing up. I wouldn't even know where a bowling alley is in Edmonton, though surely there's several. Gonna run to the washroom while we're in cruise here before we get close to arrival. Leave things going, of course. I'll just be right back. Oh, that's cool. Go AFK and the damn thing, like, veers off on its own. Alas. Do I like to do other things other than games? Kind of. I don't know. That's an odd question. I don't. Do I do things other than games? Almost never. Do I enjoy doing things other than games? Yes. But it's usually other things related to my computer. Like, I spent most of 2020 relearning C# and teaching myself Unity, and I really like coding and developing games and developing software, but that actually enacting that as a hobby, in my experience, is such a commitment to time and attention and all of these things, and maybe it's a deficiency in myself, but I find it difficult to retain enough energy or anything like that to really do a breadth of things or a variety of things after my workday or on the weekends. Like, the moment I diversify, nothing gets the attention it deserves. You know what I mean? Deserves or requires. Like, coding, if you don't use it, you lose it. Like, I would be relearning a bunch of stuff if I went back to it again now. Just part of being in the rat race. Like, I came to appreciate the sacrifice of free time that comes with being an independent adult pretty early in life. And, you know, when it comes down to, like, the choice between pursuing your passions or working often enough to feed yourself, what do you do? What do you do? I would love anything to, like, just be financially stable enough to spend 2 years focusing on developing a game or something. Like, no one says it's going to be successful, but at least I can say I did it. And maybe it would be enough experience to, like, get me my foot in the door into an industry that's enjoyable. But, you know, it's who has the time? finally getting to within shouting distance of where our destination is. I recently got a VR headset, and to kind of retouch on my interest in coding, I intend to develop some VR applications. That's kind of my next project when I get a few spare moments in my life. Is I wanna develop some simple VR experiences and see how that all works. Now that I've got the appropriate hardware to do so. One idea that's been kind of rattling around in my head is I think it would be neat to develop a virtual reality application that is kind of like it's just a room where you like tend to a personal garden. You know, every day or every time you go in there, your plants will have grown a little bit, and you can feed and water them and trim them. Like, this is something I think would be really cool to do in VR, just like an experience to care for plants for people who maybe otherwise don't have the ability, or, you know, want to be able to care for more exotic or extravagant plants, or, you know, maybe set up some sort of like bonsai system where you can like carve it into some shrubbery. I think that would be fun. Just a little zen kind of meditation space. Dare say I left my vape in the bathroom. Be right back. I wonder what walking along this road in the Amazon forest is really like. You have to imagine it's terrifying. Tarantulas and what have you. I could do you know how long that flight plan is? Like, how many nautical miles is it? That'll determine if I can say yes or no. Flight time would be an hour depending on airspeed. Let me look it up. What am I looking for here? Alright, Sky Vector tells us it's 349 nautical miles. I can do it, but I'm on the condition that I'm going to do it really fast. How about that? I'll fly it in the F-14 Tomcat. Deal? Cool. The Tomcat at full afterburner should cut that flight down to half an hour. sky vector was still up covering everything. Silly me, I do that all the time. I mean, I've flown around Australia a few times. It's pretty much red dirt and desert. Well, not always, I should say. Like, I was surprised to see what kind of mountain ranges were around there. I will be honest. I think it was mostly southern Australia that I saw a bunch of the mountains. Yeah, I did a community flight with Gripper Sim et al. In southern Australia. It was quite nice. Alright, so it's obviously a disappointing disappointing arrival, but this right here is the Guyana Space Center. So this is actually where the James Webb Space Telescope just launched from. Right here. Hopefully that'll get some love someday. And this is, I believe, the city of Kourou. Fiddling. My GPS waypoint has gone right foobar for no reason. after all this time, I always have this feeling I'm gonna shit the bed at the last minute, just fail to land, screw up the whole flight. The exciting part.
Cooling turbine. On. Fuel booster pumps. On low. Fuel tank selectors. Mains on. Crossfeed off. No smoking signs. On.
No smoking signs. On. I think my landing guides are still on. I'm such a scrub, I have to check. Yep. Low clouds are going to make this interesting, I'm sure. There's my guides there. Take manual control. Makes me feel better. It's certainly harder on the plane, but it makes me feel better. gonna throttle back. Let our airspeed drop. We'll put flaps down when we start falling. I mean, we're falling pretty fast as it is, but we're really high. Some juice as usual. Always throttle back too far. Oh god, where's the runway? Oh god, please show me the fucking runway. Oh, there we are. Hello? Hello, runway. There it is. Oh man. Oh, easy mode. I mean, not easy mode. That was some intense shit. Decent landing though, if I do say so myself. I very rarely get this close to the center line. We're just going to exit the runway here. just gonna hang a left here and see if they yell at us. I mean, yeah, I copied, but it was stupid. Got someone on approach. Alright, look, ain't nobody got time to go all the way to the end of the runway to some other parking spot. We're gonna park here. Out of the way, trucks. I'm so much bigger than you are. There. Parked up. It's not going to let me put these on until I'm shut down. It's okay. There we go. We're unloading the James Webb. Contrary to popular belief, it was shipped in hundreds of parts, and then it's going to be assembled on site. Right, we're going to wait for our automated flight engineer to cut the engines, and that should end this flight. I think we're going to do a quick tour through Australia. Patty Boy requested. We're waiting for this bar to go down. It'll cut off all our power. Ta-da! All right, so Yankee Papa Delta November Darwin International to Yankee Papa Golf Victor. I'll adjust the time of day and whatnot when we get loaded up so we can actually see some things. Oh, wow. You guys have some dog shit weather happening now. She's rainy in Darwin. This is one of my favorite aircraft by far. Do you prefer live weather? It's up to you. All right.
Darwin Tower EQS 042, continue for west departure.
Let's break that sound barrier. Here comes the tuck. There's our boom. You guys got some strange colors on your ground. So, Patty boy, does it remind you of home? You can hear us just riding the edge of the sound barrier, popping it over and over and over again. I know there's a lot of the classic Australian red sand around Uluru, this area here. Yeah, that one. Uluru. The once named Ayers Rock or something like that. Or so the legend goes. From an outside perspective, I'm pretty sure the world is convinced that Australia is 50% dingoes stealing babies. The other 50% is shrimp on Barbies. heading indicator is not accurate with respect to my position on this map anyway. Yeah, I do. He's my Rio back there. How's it going, buddy? He just kind of keeps to himself. Some of the funniest stuff I've seen in flight sim videos online. I think his name's Overkill Simulation, something like that. He plays a lot of DCS World, and every now and then he'll be flying around doing some crazy madness, and his Rio, his like buddy in the back there, will just bail on him. It's like, this is getting too nuts, and he'll just pull his ejector seat. It's hilarious to watch. I would give anything for this button. This thing right here to work. I want to be able to like press it and have my canopy blow off. Mud crabbing and getting crocs. Yeah, I'm far too much a city slicker to know what that shit means. Random runway in the middle of nowhere. Familiar with that random runway, are you? I wish I understood why the stream was such a laggy mess. My frame rate is good, and my internet is good, so what the shit? Australia is similar to Canada in the respect that you guys have a lot of space and know when to fill it. Whereabouts is that? Is that this bay we're about to fly over here? Or is it this one? Like a mirror. I've only been fishing a couple times in my life, but I enjoyed it when I was younger. Oh, bro. I'm like a massive cavity. It's giving me a headache. Oh, I guess you guys only got one runway over here. I guess it just doesn't want to give me landing guides. I guess that's okay. You can see the airport here, the runway. Alright, man. Ready for some crazy madness? We didn't get enough distance. There's no way we're going to slow down in time. We'll do it the other way. Speed brakes deployed. Did my gear not come down? Fuck it. My gear didn't come down. I blame the plane. Your gear locks up and your flaps are locked above a certain speed. So I didn't bleed fast enough. Like I was still at 300 when I was starting to level out on approach. So I needed to be closer to 250 at that point so my flaps would respond and then my speed would have bled more. So then your gear would drop at like, 200-ish. But oh well, you get the gist. All right, man. It's good to see you again. I think that's going to be all for me for a bit. I'm going to log out and do my Christmas stuff. I hope you enjoy what's left of your day. No worries, man. You take care. I may stream a little later today, or you'll see me tomorrow, I'm sure. Bye for now. Enjoy your holidays.